Hey everyone, this is a bonus Q&A episode. I try and answer questions live every Thursday. You can sign up to come to my free live Q&A at schoolforthedogs.com/Q&A, and you will see the next one I'm doing. I then am trying to take recordings of those Q&As and post them here to the podcast feed. If you have a question, you can email me directly, Annie at School for the Dogs. You can also go to anchor.fm/dogs and record your question there. Thanks for being here. Hello. Can you hear me? If you're here, please tell me if you can hear me. Fix this. Can you hear me? And hello, Kathy. Hello, Yolanda. Kathy, where are you joining us from? Oh, great. You can hear me. Yolanda sent me, thank you so much for the super sweet email you sent me, Yolanda. Actually, it was so sweet. Could I read it? Would you mind if I read it? Let me know. And I should tell you, Yolanda, I just heard from the... So I took Amos, my dog, to Blue Pearl yesterday, an animal hospital in New York City. And they did a needle biopsy of this mass that he has on his liver. And it came out that it doesn't look like it's cancer. So, I mean, I figured the chances of it not being cancer were like tiny. I was really not prepared for that good news. So I'm thrilled. I mean, they said his heart's a little big, like he, clearly is the old dog with the beginnings of some issues, but it's possible he just had this really big mass on his liver for a long time. So overall, just feeling quite glad about that. Yeah. And my computer, which I spilled water on this time last week, is working. I don't want to jinx life, but the two terrible things that happened last Thursday are now a lot less terrible than they were. And I spent a lot of time over the last week just like mourning him, even though he's not gone yet. Just really had a lot of emotions, like thoughts, feelings about life, death, time, etc. I've been a little emotional. And I am having a doctor who does acupuncture and Chinese herb stuff come actually later today. See if maybe we can get his appetite going. And I feel also just so grateful to my two friends who are vets who have just gone above and beyond to help me through this scary week. Dr. Andrea II, who's with Behavior Vets, they used to rent space from us. They used to operate kind of outside of our studio for a long time. There are very few behavior vets in the country, and she and Dr. Christensen are just such spectacular people. And Dr. II actually offered to come sit with me yesterday at Blue Pearl for a few hours it was more than a few hours. It was like 4 hours while we were waiting for Amos to get his tests. And I was just I mean, the fact that she was a vet was just like a huge bonus, because like she could walk me through everything. You know, it was all over the phone because of COVID. Like I never even saw the doctor face to face. So being able to like be with my friend there who's a vet, who could tell me, you know, in plain English, like what was going on, what the vet who I wasn't face to face with was talking about, just meant a lot. And Dr. Lisa, who is a remote house call vet. Actually, both of them, I've interviewed both of them on the podcast before. Dr. Lisa has been just such a great resource, also kind of helping to figure out where he should go, what to do, all of it. So I'm blessed to have these like like a concierge bespoke veterinary experience. But all right, so I have a couple questions here, but Yolanda, I wanted to read the super sweet email that Yolanda sent me about losing her dog. And, you know, I hate talking about dogs dying. It's like my least favorite thing. I hate seeing movies where dogs die. So it's hard to even talk about this stuff, but it's part of the whole thing about having a dog, isn't it? So Yolanda wrote me the other day, my thoughts are with you and Amos. I want to share my story with you because the hardest day is yet to come, and I myself wasn't emotionally prepared for it. Bundy was my first dog, a Yorkshire Terrier that came into my life when he was already 2 years old. I was in 7th grade and didn't know anything about raising a dog, but I really believe he had the best life. He lived until 19 years old. He was with me for over half of my life and was by my side through high school, college, job layoff, major breakup, and the beginning of grad school. He had puppy energy until he was about 12. Amos too. Amos has only slowed down recently. After 12, he mellowed out, but remained in good health until his last year. He started having bad days, but he was having good days too, so my parents and I did our best to care for him and keep him comfortable. I was set to go to grad school abroad, and I cried hysterically when leaving because I was scared his health would turn for the worse in my absence. I called my parents on Skype all of the time just to talk to Bundy so he could hear my voice. I came home for Christmas and saw that he was indeed worse, and when I had to go back to school, I bawled my eyes out while hugging him for what felt like hours because I didn't know if he would make it to the summer. I went to China in the spring for study abroad, and soon after I arrived, I had a nightmare that he passed away. I called my parents and they broke the news that he was gone. It was surreal because it was as though our spirits, mine and Bundy's, were somehow connected, and I was immediately sensitive to his absence. I struggled for a good 3 weeks because I was so far from home and alone. I didn't know how heartbroken my parents were too until I came home during the summer. They had buried him for me and planted flowers in his memory. To this day, I love Bundy so much and still cry when I think about him. When I graduated and came back to New York City, I had to get Cody in order to truly overcome my grief. My advice is to hug and kiss Amos, celebrate the days he feels well by doing your favorite memorable things together, and surround yourself with your support network. Every pet owner goes through what you're going through, so you're not alone. I don't know if it's really possible to emotionally prepare, so I would just cherish every day you have with him, and please get a second medical opinion just in case. Thank you. Big hugs, Yolanda. It was so sweet. Actually, it made me think of a passage. I don't know if I can find it while I'm here right this second, but Darwin, there's a letter that Darwin's sister wrote him about his dog dying that made me think of this. Let me see if I can find this. Wait, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, I'm here to answer questions, not to Google letters to Darwin about dogs dying, but somewhere I'll find it at some point there. He was a big dog lover, and I feel like I've yes, you're right. Like, you need a support system, and in the last week, I just got this good news, by the way, like 30 minutes ago. The last week, then I was thinking a lot about my feelings, and I did realize, like I can ask Kate. If I have to change his diet, like Kate can help me figure out like what I need to feed him. If I can't deal emotionally with like bringing him into chemo or anything like that, like I can ask Jason to do that. Like it occurred to me like, oh, I don't have to do this all by myself, because part of what was stressing me out was like, I want to be there for him and give him the best possible care. And but like I also have a toddler and my own business, and like there's only one of me, and like the stress of like, how am I going to care for him in the best possible way, on top of the sadness. Anyway, so yes, good to have a support network. And all right, questions. I promised Supriya, who has written me questions before, I promised her that I would answer at least one of the questions. She emailed me like a batch, and I said if I couldn't do, I think I told her if I couldn't do them all, I would at least do one a week. So I'm just going to do them in the order that they came in. So her first question is, in Animals in Translation by Temple Grandin, she says that one of the very few instances she thinks using an e-collar is useful is when training dogs to stop a prey drive. I'm lucky enough that even when my dog chases everything from squirrels to deer, he always comes back. But I don't want to wait for my luck to run out. What do you think of Temple Grandin's advice? Great question. Animal in Translation is a book I read right around when I started, I think, the Karen Pryor Academy 10 and a half years ago. And Temple Grandin is, if you've never heard of Temple Grandin, actually there's a wonderful biopic about her starring Claire Danes that anyone who's interested in animals definitely should watch. She is autistic and I believe has spent her career very successfully helping. I think her main thing has been helping design slaughterhouses to be as humane as possible. But the truth is, I really don't know that much about using e-collars to stop a prey drive. I think that, oh, hi, Vicky's here. Hi, Mom. Vicky is my mom. I don't know a lot about using an e-collar to stop prey drive. I think that, if this was a client asking, should I use an e-collar to stop prey drive, I would say I think the best thing to do would be to start out with the whistle recall, which, basically is you blow a whistle and drop food at your feet and make that just like a super reliable cue that every time you blow that whistle, delicious stuff happens right near you. And it's really an easy thing to teach because you're not asking anything of your dog. You're just creating that association. I believe I did do a podcast on teaching a recall in This Way, a podcast episode. I would say do that first. However, you're competing with prey drive, which can be a lot stronger than whatever it is you could possibly offer your dog to associate with the whistle. So, I don't, like I said, I don't know how e-collar work that's done with dogs, for instance, like rattlesnake, keeping dogs away from rattlesnakes. I'm not quite sure how that kind of training is done because, the important thing is to make sure that the dog isn't making the wrong association. However, there are plenty of dogs in this world, just, like a lot of gun dogs, for instance, who are trained using electric collars. And if they have good trainers, the collars shouldn't be used over and over again. They should be used effective by putting an electric collar on them. There are plenty of very happy dogs who have been trained with electric collars. Dogs are certainly very resilient. There are a lot of reasons why I would caution anyone from going that route. But that said, there are dogs who I think have been trained well using electric collars. Could they have also been trained without the electric collars using positive reinforcement? Yes, probably in most cases, but feel that they are able to use e-collars humanely in training. Maybe I can find a trainer who's in that sector who could talk to me about it, because I'd like to learn more. All right. Actually, I'm going to take one more Supriya question. I have them here. Second question from Supriya. Speaking of e-collars, several models have 3 modes: a beep or a tone, a vibration, and a shock. I've considered using something like this just for the tone as a way to teach my dog to come back to me when he's across the park. I don't like having to yell "come" from all the way across the park. I also can't whistle, unfortunately. Maybe I could teach my dog to associate the command "come" when he already does very well with the tone from an e-collar. Thoughts? Yes, I think that's a great idea. And actually, there's at least one collar out there that's just a vibrating collar. I can see if I can send you a link to it, Supriya. I know we have one at the studio. But yeah, you could totally do that. I think that's like a really cool thing to do. I've never done that myself, but what you could teach the dog that, like, you know, one vibration means come back to mom. You could also teach the dog, you know, 1 vibration means go right and 2 vibrations means go left, or a vibration and a tone means come to, you know, me, and a vibration means, you know, meet me at the door of the dog park. I mean, you could develop a whole language that way, and that certainly would be kind of a cool thing to experiment with. So yes, do it. Tell me how it goes. I think that's it. You know, like people who work with herding dogs have to be able to teach them to go this way or that way. And I wonder if they're doing something similar using these kinds of collars, using the vibration or the tone. Again, something I need to learn more about. I know that, like, there are hand signals that can be given from far away. But yeah, I mean, I'm endlessly interested in how technology can make us more creative, make us more creative in the ways that we can communicate with our dogs and do things with our dogs. I think it's super cool. I mean, there's a lot of technology out there that I think is unnecessary. Oh my God. I've seen, like, you know, like beds that record your dog's weight every day so you can track changes. Or, oh my God, we did actually a few years ago, we did one of our dog students was in a ad for a company that was creating this device that, like, hooked onto the dog's tail and counted the wags in the direction of the wags so that you could, like, monitor your dog's happiness level. Anyway, there's a lot of, like, ridiculous gadgets out there. But there's also a lot of things out there that I think can be kind of hacked to help us train dogs in pretty cool ways. You know, I'm just going to power through and do all of Supriya's questions because I feel like I'm on a roll now. So Supriya's third question. This is the Supriya Q&A episode. Do you have any advice on how to talk to other dog owners about their poor behavior? I once saw a couple yell at their dog and proceed to ignore her. Fortunately, there was no physical violence after their dog refused to retrieve a toy from the river. From what I could see, the dog simply didn't understand what she was supposed to do. Although I thought about giving them some advice, in the end, I didn't say anything. I can't help but wonder, what would Annie do? Oh, wow. Really great question. So yeah, I try and bite my tongue on all things relating to dog behavior, unless I am somewhere people signed up to talk to me, like you guys here right now. Or, you know, if I'm at school for the dogs with my treat pouch on, in which case I tend to feel I can be more vocal because, you know, people are in my place. And it, you know, it's funny. The other day, I actually, someone was saying that their puppy was nipping, and she was like, so when the puppy nips, I was standing at the desk. She was talking to Adam, one of our trainers, and she was like, when a puppy nips, I just gently like bang his nose with my fingers and say, ouch. And I was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And afterwards, Adam was like, I couldn't believe how ballsy you were to just say that way. I always like feel like I have to tiptoe around these things. And I was like, yeah, but I'm the owner of this business, and it's a business about dog training, and you're asking, about dog training in my like house basically. But it's hard because like when you're at the dog park, like I see things all the time that I want to talk to people about, but nobody's there to hear what Annie Grossman has to say. So to go more specifically back to what I would have done in this situation, I think I would probably try and get the couple to see something that they like about the dog. I always say, like, we get so focused on like a dog needs to sit, and sometimes like on the street, you always see people trying to get a dog to sit before, like, I see this with my daughter all the time because like sometimes we have dog treats on us because she likes to go up to see dogs whenever possible on the street. So sometimes I have dog treats on me, and I give one to her, and I'll say to the person, can my daughter give your dog a treat? Because it's like an appropriate way for her to interact with the dog. And the person will be like, Bailey, sit. And I just want to be like, just let the kid give the dog a treat. Like the dog is doing the behavior of allowing a kid to be in front of him that, he's never seen her. Like, just be like, Bailey, be cute. Good job. Like, it's about like finding some like much lower level behavior that you can reward. So in a similar way, I think I would say to these people like, oh my God, what a beautiful dog, look at that coat, or like, look how well, like, what a great swimmer. Did you guys teach her that? Like, which, of course they probably didn't teach her how to swim, but, do something to try and get them to see something she is doing well. And like, maybe that will help them even like take pride in her being able to do something well. Something else that I've encountered, in this kind of situation is where people will say like, she really knows it. She's just not doing it right now. Or she's being stubborn. Like, I feel like there's part of me in the situation where you're describing where I would want to say, like, do you really know that she knows how to do this thing that you're asking her to do? That, is she really refusing, or does she not know how to retrieve the toy? So I've also said, under my School for the Dog's roof, I've said to people, which can be awkward, like, oh, how do you know? Like, how do you know that she knows that? How do you know that she's refusing? Maybe she just never learned. How do you know that he's being stubborn? Maybe he doesn't know what you want him to do, or maybe he doesn't feel well. So how do you know is kind of like my go-to, I get another go-to thing I would have in that situation, but it can be confrontational. So it depends. If you're standing inside School for the Dogs and you're next to me, maybe it'll feel less confrontational. Supriya's last question. I take my dog camping and backpacking quite a lot. One of the general rules is to pee or poop at least 200 feet from a water source, at least for humans and maybe for dogs too. Can I teach my dog not to pee or poop near a water source? Okay. First of all, not to roll my eyes at these rules. Like, I'm sure they're there and they should be there, but like, aren't there lots of animals peeing and pooping near the water source? Like, maybe like humans aren't supposed to do it, but like how many other animals are doing it? Like, that's where my mind goes. But of course it's not about like having an argument about the rules. I'm just saying, like, anyway, I don't know how I would teach a dog to not pee or poop in a certain vicinity, but what you could do is train your dog to go on a wee-wee pad, or train your dog to go on cue. A wee-wee pad is a kind of like visual cue, but the cue could be a word or whatever. And give that cue or put down that wee-wee pad before you enter the 200-foot source. And in that situation, before you enter, the 200-foot area away from the water source, and, make it kind of a ritual that your dog gets rewarded for going in that spot. I think that's probably my best suggestion. I'm curious if the rules apply to dogs too. 200 feet from a water source, you can't pee or poop. I mean, what about the fish? The fish are peeing. The fish are peeing and pooping. All right, got through all of Supriya's questions. And I did have one other question come in. Yolanda says, I have been working on desensitizing Cody to children. My neighbor's kid is typically loud and waves things in the air and runs around his yard, to which Cody reacts by jumping on the fence and barking, so I keep him inside. Cody regularly plays with the dog and met the dog's kid last week and very suddenly lunged on leash when this kid started moving his arms. I don't know how to train better when his negative association continues to be reinforced by my neighbor's kid, who is here only every other weekend. My neighbor tries telling his kid to act differently around Cody, but he doesn't listen. How old is the kid, Yolanda? How old is the kid? Because I would loop in the kid to do some training, make it a fun thing. You could, make it like you have a job for the kid. But kids can be very good. Yolanda said it's 9 or 10. Okay. So say like, hey, I need help every other weekend training my dog to help me for an hour. Or maybe $15. That's minimum wage in New York City. We have to pay our children fairly. See if you can set up some situations where the kid can be at a distance that you think Cody can handle. Maybe you can do it it doesn't have to be in the actual situation. Find like a field or something, keep Cody on leash and just work on desensitization with the kid. It's also going to make the kid more aware of Cody, and kids pick up on this stuff really quickly in my experience. So, you might find that you turn the kid into a little mini dog trainer, and have the kid, if you can get close enough, have the kid, deliver some of the treats, toss the treats onto the ground. Anyway, let me know how that goes. I think that could be a fun thing for both Cody and the kid. A question came in from Yasmin, who lives in Chicago and listens to the podcast. Yasmin said, hi, I was accepted into the Karen Pryor Academy dog trainer professional program yesterday. Congratulations, Yasmin. I am excited and nervous to start the program in December. Since I don't currently have my own dog, I will be borrowing a friend's Aussie. Could you talk a bit about your experience through the program? Things like amount of hours a week, workshops, instructor, working with a borrowed dog. Thank you. It's been 10 years. Actually, last week, I think, was my 10-year anniversary of graduating. And I think the program has probably changed a lot since then. I haven't gone through their most recent curriculum, but I can tell you my general, thoughts and feelings and what I remember. I really went into the Karen Pryor Academy knowing pretty much nothing. And I think that's kind of unusual because I think, especially now as more and more people have done it and it's gained more and more of a fine reputation, there are a lot of people who go into KPA for their professional program after like impressive careers as dog trainers, and do it kind of to get that certification and to really dig in. I found, the program for me really set me on the path of understanding how to approach dog training. It really gave me the basics, and it showed me where it pointed me in the right direction. I guess that's how I think about it. And I think I probably spent, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 hours a week. I found the reading portion of it to be pretty easy. It's like, I don't know how it is now, but it was basically kind of like a PowerPoint presentation that I went through, that we went through. So like, and it wasn't very like reading intensive, wasn't very writing intensive. There were exercises to do with the dog, and that stuff, like, you know, you could spend as much time as you want, because like you could endlessly perfect a behavior. Shaping is like a never ending process. And then there are weekend workshops. Every 6 weeks, I did a workshop with Steve Benjamin, who is in Endicott, New York. I think he does Karen Pryor Academy sessions all over the country now. He had a facility, like a basement facility, and there were actually only 2 other people in the class with me. I think started out there were 5 of us, and interestingly, I was the only American out of the 5. There was one person from Japan, one from Israel, one from Finland living in Canada, and one from Canada, and me. And it ended up, in the end, it was just the 2 Canadian women and me. And, you know, so we got a lot of like attention and time. A few like cohorts after me, my good friend Yolanda went through KPA also with Steve, and her class had like 10 in it, which was hard for me to imagine, because, you know, 3 felt like just right for me, because I liked getting to know the other people. I liked getting the attention from Steve. And, you know, it's just really amazing to watch him train. You know, like I remember like just little things he would do that would just, like one time I remember he put down a plate and he started giving the dog treats on a plate to focus the dog like on one spot, because like it makes such a difference often where you're delivering your rewards. Like, you know, they say like, you know, you click for behavior, you treat for placement, and saving the dog time so that he doesn't have to go looking for the treat, putting it on this one spot so he knows exactly where to go. Like, it was such a simple thing to see Steve do this, and yet it was like, oh, okay, that's that's pretty brilliant. What I didn't get from KPA, like there was like a business section, but like I don't really feel like I graduated and felt like, oh, I know how to run a dog training business and I know how to teach. I left, and again, I went in knowing nothing and I came out knowing a lot, but I don't think I really knew how to like teach. Like it frankly like took a few years of just like doing it to figure out how to communicate everything I had learned to people in a way that made sense to me, and, you know, and I hope made sense, makes sense to my clients. And certainly it's taken a while to figure out how to parlay the whole thing into, you know, a sustainable business. I hope I've answered this question in some kind of roundabout way. I'm sure that there's many different Karen Pryor experiences out there, as there have been Karen Pryor Academy students. And for me, it was a wonderful thing that I did. Like I said, I feel like I needed to like go to the School of Hard Knocks to actually learn how to teach. It also, I don't know if this has changed. It really doesn't touch on like reactivity and like some of like the larger, you know, like separation anxiety, like issues. But you know what, that's there. I guess I should say one thing that sorry, I have so many thoughts. I don't know where to go. You know, let me back up. Right after I finished Karen Pryor Academy, I went to the Association of Professional Dog Trainers annual conference, which that year was in Atlanta. And that just like blew my mind open. I think going from KPA, which sees things in a very specific way, which I'm like totally on board with. But, going from an experience where it was like mostly remote and except for these, 4 weekend sessions where I would see these 2 other women and Steve, and going from that to like this convention center with thousands of dog trainers doing all kinds of different things from all different kinds of places. There was they have like an expo in addition to the panels and the lectures. They have what's it called, like a trade show. I mean, with all different kinds of products, and like I had a real like epiphany moment going to that, and I would suggest that I think it's definitely a good thing for anyone to go to. I mean, if anyone can go to conventions again, who knows? But I would definitely suggest like diving into just like all different kinds of resources. So like I wouldn't, if I hadn't done KP, I would not have even known about, Temple Grandin. I wouldn't have known about, like, even if I wasn't reading that for the course, it just set me on like the path of like even learning. I wouldn't have known what the Association for Professional Dog Trainers was if I hadn't gone to KPA. Half the books on my dog training bookshelf I probably bought because Steve recommended them during the program. Again, it's not a very text heavy program, and I really was like hungry to learn like more of the science and the history when I got out of KPA. That's sort of when I became like obsessed with BF Skinner. Anyway, that's a roundabout long I hope answer to a question. All right, one last question I have here that I had set aside. Billy writes to me, I am an older person with some limited mobility issues. I use a cane and I'm possibly transitioning to a walker very soon. I have an adorable male Japanese chin who is energetic and the joy of my life. I use a cane because of balance issues and I fall. My little guy gets a brisk walk 3 mornings a week with a friend. I walk him the rest of the time. We generally go between 1/2 and 3/4 of a mile. He pulls but stops with a no pulling and a tug. Okay. He seems to keep me upright. With a bit of tension on the leash. So I don't use a cane when I'm walking him. I normally don't fall or trip when I'm out with him, but it has happened on occasion. I am thinking of getting a walker, which I think will give me more stability, and wonder if you know of some techniques or hints about the safest way to walk a dog by a small woman that is safe. Can I attach the leash to a walker? Walking with a cane doesn't feel like a safe option for either of us. Wow. Okay. Interesting question. And it sounds to me like a really good idea to use a walker, like relying on the weight of a Japanese chin pulling against you on a leash to keep you upright seems like, I don't know, just like less of a good idea to me than a walker. It's interesting because you say like the tension on the leash is helpful, but then, you're also saying that he's pulling and you tug him. So it sounds like there's a lot of like back and forth on the leash that's going on it's complicated because like you're saying you want him to pull because that helps to keep you up, but then he's pulling and you are trying to keep him from pulling. So, it's possible that the pulling isn't actually a problem. So if he ends up pulling on your walker, maybe that's actually no big deal. But, you could certainly, if you want to work on keeping him from pulling, and you also want to use a walker, I very much think you could work on doing those 2 things at the same time. This is something where I would say, it probably would be helpful to work with a professional trainer in that, just to sort of like set up how you're going to do it, but I can explain how I would approach it. I would start somewhere where your dog is pretty comfortable and not used to pulling, like maybe in your living room, somewhere where I would start even without your dog on a leash. And then I would teach your dog to like stand next to you on, like, let's say a yoga mat, and with you having the walker next to you, and start just like moving around the room just a little bit, you holding the walker. And I want you to, you have mobility issues, so I don't know if you could bend down to give your dog a treat, but what you could do is like put peanut butter on a spoon, and if you can't bend, and bend down and give that to him, like kind of near your leg or wherever it is you really want him to be when you're outside. You could even put it on the walker, at least for training while you're doing this, training, and let him lick the peanut butter or whatever off of the walker. But the idea is I want you to like start moving around. I said you have to use a yoga mat. You don't even have to use a yoga mat. What can be nice about something like a mat or something like a dish towel is that it can help him understand exactly where you want him to be. But he can just learn where you want him to be in relation to you and the walker. So that's my suggestion. Start off without using a leash, you with the walker, walking around like your living room, and every like one step, let him lick some peanut butter off of your walker, or bend down, give him a treat, or with peanut butter on a stick, that kind of thing. And what you're going to be doing is teaching him exactly where you want him to be while you're walking, so that you can then put the leash on the walker and attach it to him. But like by doing it this way, you're adding in the leash after he's already learned where to be. So you're not like building his pulling into the behavior. Ideally, I don't want him to start pulling on the leash with a walker at all. I want him to not even feel like that's like something that you do when you're walking with Billy near her walker. Assuming pulling is a bad thing that you don't want. I am a little confused by the way you phrased it. You could also, just to make it again a totally new experience, I would maybe get a different kind of harness. Like a front clip harness is a really good choice when you're trying to discourage pulling. We have the 2 Hounds Freedom harness that we recommend all the time, or Roughwear makes the front range harness, which has a front clip, also good. But I would suggest getting some kind of new attachment for him, so that you're sort of like starting off on a fresh foot, as it were. So you're not putting on something that he's already used to wearing while pulling, if that makes sense. So get like a leash that attaches in a new place while you're working on this. And Billy, if you'd like to reach out, we could totally help you with this in a virtual session. And for a limited time, if you get our Good Dog Training course, which is at schoolforthedogs.com/courses, we are doing a 30-minute virtual session along with that purchase. All right. Thank you, folks, for being here. And I just posted last week's Q&A to the podcast. I will post this one here as soon as I can. Tomorrow's episode, I'm really excited about. Should I tell you who I interviewed, or should I let you guess? I'll give you a hint. I interviewed a presidential candidate for the podcast, for real. And it's sort of about dog training, kind of. I'll leave it at that. But definitely check it out tomorrow. I'm just in the process of editing it, and it's pretty excited. I think it's going to be a pretty great episode. All right. Thanks, folks. Hope to see you next week. Bye.